The Super Famicom? Okay, yeah, none of you have probably ever owned this thing. We all know the SNES, but the Super Famicom? Yeah, no, this intro doesn't work, cause like, what even is this? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's a cool as hell console with cool as hell games. Man, this is a really weird video already, and it's only gonna get weirder. I had to do a lot of digging to find some of these, and a lot of them are so obscure, they never got translated. I had to hold my phone up to the screen and use Google Translate to read some of this dialogue, which, I'm not gonna lie, got really tedious. But it makes for more obscure games, because the barrier for entry for people who can't speak Japanese is staggering. So a lot of these have gone almost completely untouched by the Western eye. The biggest mistake I made with a Game Boy Advance video was thinking that the system had more obscure RPGs than it actually did. But oh boy, the Super Famicom does not have this problem, because every time I blink, I find another odd, cozy, or downright amazing overlooked gem for me to play. Trust me, this video gets insane. From space wars to date fighting, this rabbit hole goes super deep. Of course, the longer this video goes on, the more obscure or cozy it gets, but like, come on, most of these are gonna be obscure, so who cares, right? And also, these first few games are gonna be stuff I've already talked about on this channel. Trust, this is probably the last time I will ever talk about these games in detail again. So I'm making sure that the definitive reviews of these games on my channel. So let's not spare a single moment here and look at these gems one by one. This is cozy and obscure Super Famicom RPGs. Also, I'm gonna be calling these SNES games because I don't feel like having to say Super Famicom every 5 seconds. Cool. Like I mentioned earlier, I've talked about a few of these games before, but not really in the way that I'd like. A problem with a lot of my older videos is that I didn't go in depth enough with the games I was talking about. I'm not going to go over these for super long because I want to give attention to the stuff I haven't played yet, but I might as well revisit them for this video, right? Again, I'll try to keep it concise, but still add a lot of substance to what I'm saying. Also, I'm mentioning some that I haven't talked about on this channel, but have played before making this video. The Adventures of Hourai. In the grand scheme of things, it's obscure, but people who are familiar with my channel would 100% know what this game is. Like, come on, I use music from this game in like almost all of my videos. I beat this game over 3 years ago now, but this is one of those things I remember so vividly, just due to its charm. I obviously replayed it for this video, but I really had no reason to, as my review without replaying the game would probably be just as good as it is now that I did replay it. There's a reason as to why I still consistently talk about this game despite not having played it for years. It came out in early 1996, around the end of the SNES's lifespan in regards to RPGs. I don't want to look at it in terms of how modern consumers purchase new gaming hardware, because a lot of the time, people didn't immediately switch to the next thing when it came out. Even then, the game is an adaptation of a play-by-mail game, a type of game that was especially prevalent in 80s Japan, and it was kind of this choose-your-own-adventure type thing. The whole play-by-mail thing has been around since the 60s, but I'd say it peaked around here. You'd be given a setting and a scenario, and you could write a letter about what you want to do. After around a few weeks, you get a letter back explaining what occurred as a result of your actions. And this would go back and forth for quite a while. It was basically just a glacially slow turn-based game. Although, it could also be played through digital mail, which was still very slow, but way faster than physically mailing a letter. They kinda died out as video games took the role of whatever experiences these could provide, and the Adventures of Hourai was so popular that it actually got developed into a game. I played as a boy this run, because each gender has different dialogue and areas available to them, depending on who you pick. And I played girl last time, so it's time to switch things up, you know? Playing as a girl is significantly easier, because the game has this running gag that the girls are treated unfairly better than the guys. And playing as a boy this time, there's a new chapter where you sneak into the girls' dorms, which are all like futuristic and really sleek. I like the designs a lot. In hindsight, chapter 4, well, I mean, it's not called chapter 4 because this game doesn't go by chapters, but that's what I call it personally. Chapter 4 for both genders are easily my favorite parts of the game. As a girl, you go into a haunted part of the boys' dorms and fight these ghosts. I think this was actually the first RPG I played on my Steam Deck, or at least the first SNES RPG I played on my Steam Deck anyway. Now, the novelty of playing SNES games on the system has kinda worn off, and I've just sorta gone back to playing them on my 3DS again, which I'm actually using my 3DS capture card to record my footage of this. And I think my friend Jonas put it best right here.
You mainly got the most cumbersome capture card to obtain in order to record everything else, but the reason to even get the capture card? Kinda.
Anyway, this game is just a whole vibe. I'm not one of those guys who is super obsessed with Japan or anything, but that 90s Japanese high school aesthetic is just so unique and recognizable that I can't help but love it. I think it's due to its association with fictional media rather than the actual thing, because like I heard 90s Japanese high school wasn't all that glamorous. It's just like, over glamorized like most things, obviously. It made me think that high school would actually be enjoyable and not the absolute slog that it is. It's basically just that whole high school setting on steroids. I mean, the island is just comprised of this high school. Those are like my two favorite settings, islands and high schools, which is amazing for me because I get even more enjoyment out of this game. Well, fictional settings. I love real life islands, but I hate real life high schools, so there's really a difference there. They really tap into that whole high school thing. The stakes are so extremely low in this game, which makes it the perfect thing to just chill to. And most of the conflict just boils down to the student council decided to do something stupid again. Which it turns out, this whole student council is basically just some weird ass cult with stuff like mind control and kidnappings. And all of these weird decisions and rules they have been enforcing are all parts of some crazy agenda spearheaded by, God, what even is this? Yeah, that's another thing, this game is weird as hell. The enemies are odd caricatures of weird enemies you'll probably remember from high school. Corny theater kids, asshole teachers, and... oh... in 2025, that's not, okay. No wonder why this game never got released in America. It's too realistic. Everything feels so insulated here, which really adds to the whole atmosphere of this game. It's a very short SNES RPG, and there's no real bloat here. I can vividly recount almost everything that happens in this game, and I really only replayed it for footage because, yeah, nobody else has played this on YouTube for some reason. Well, they have, but the footage is, it's kind of ass actually, so I'm not using it. I haven't really talked about the difficulty because this is a freaking easy as hell game, not a single challenging fight in this. Plus, there's a class system that takes the form of clubs. What's cool about this is that they give you a permanent boost in stats once you hit a certain milestone, and they don't go away after class changes. And since these modifiers stack, well, it just makes the game even easier than it already is. Despite this being a very story-driven game, it's not as linear as it seems. There's a lot of material that I completely missed my first playthrough, and also missed on my second playthrough still, like optional party members who you must unlock through certain circumstances. These things, called the 7 Wonders, which I haven't found a single one actually, still don't know what they are. I also should mention the visual aesthetic of this game, and man, I have like a love-hate relationship with it. Certain parts of it look cheap, especially the school layout, which can be a little cramped and oddly designed at times. I really like how the characters acknowledge this. They just chalk it down to the school being wacky and weird. As a pixel artist, I also noticed the cheaper look of this game compared to the others on the system, especially in 1996. But I honestly really love this sort of style. I hesitate to call it cheap because I find a lot of value in it. I'd prefer to call it simple. It's obviously more restrained by the budget than most other SNES RPGs, but man, it's just so cozy. I need to refrain from using that word because it's gonna get really old the longer this video goes on. Hold on, let me find a synonym for cozy real quick. Homey. Yeah, this game is homey. The story is pretty linear, despite the world being more open-ended. It follows chapters, and each chapter has a new activity or area you need to explore. A huge strength of this chapter format is that almost everything is open from the very beginning. And since the entire game takes place on this kind of small island, you can explore so much of it before even progressing that much into the game. You'll be able to see later adversaries and events foreshadowed, or at least mentioned hours before even experiencing some of their storylines. It really fleshes out the world because it shows you these people and places exist entirely outside of you. Of course, you still have to deal with the ridiculously high encounter rate, which really discourages you from exploring too early. Like, the encounter rate in this is probably the most egregious I've seen in like any RPG ever, and that's not hyperbole by the way. There's literally no need to grind in this game because it'll make sure you're more than high level enough to kick ass. It's a very homey game that I recommend you play if you are familiar with old school RPGs already. Not because it's hard or anything, in fact, it'd be the perfect gateway RPG if it weren't for the encounter rate. But if you can handle classic RPG tedium, then this is the perfect game for you. I gladly replayed it for this video because this game is awesome to be honest. And there's a Reddit thread calling this game bad, and it's the first thing that pops up when you search the adventures of Hourai. And it's also the most popular discussion pertaining to this game. Oh god, us Hourai fans can't catch a break, can we? Love Quest. Now, Love Quest is my favorite dating sim where I get to throw down with cute and beautiful women. Well, we're not really throwing down, you could more call it aggressive flirting. It's a gag game that focuses way more on story and humor over actual gameplay. But man, the gameplay in this game, despite being like the typical by-the-books milquetoast SNES RPG gameplay, it's just so cute. Especially since it's framed as a date battle, and with every woman you meet, your charm and social skills increases ever so slightly. You play as my boy right here, the ultimate player, a guy saving his to-be wife after she's kidnapped at a wedding. Now before I even talk about this game, I want to talk about the weirdest backstory of this game. It's a remake of a weird as hell NES prototype that was cancelled and is now lost media. They basically were like, hey, how about we just remake this game for the more successful system because we'll make even more money. And I think it worked. I don't know. It's not popular over here in the West, so I have no frame of reference to go off of. You just kinda go around Japan, spitting game, and bidding beautiful girls by showing them how charming you are. I've never really played a game like this in this format. It doesn't have a real, solidified plot, and it focuses way more on humor and wackiness over like anything else. Which honestly was a super nice change of pace. It feels like playing a comedy manga, especially since the gameplay is so chill and relaxing. Combine that with the aesthetic, gosh, I love it. The soft colors and music, I really feel like a young adult in 90s urban Japan. This is probably the most obscure game in this video, or at least the second most obscure. There's no translation for this, and hardly anyone knows this thing exists, let alone talks about it. It's not hard to find online like some other games, but finding people's thoughts on this is pretty difficult. I think my first Cozy Obscure RPGs video is like the most viewed video with this game included in it. And hopefully, if this video doesn't flop, it'll be my most viewed. God, YouTube algorithm, don't screw me again. I spent so much time on that Street Pass video. Y'all had me depressed for like a week, man. The very first Star Ocean. What a gem, man. I've played this like 3 times and never beat it. And I have a really dumb reason for this. You see, this is one of the most impressive games on the system. The battles always blew me away, the narrative is engaging, and the art style, along with the graphics, are breathtaking. One of the best looking games ever created in my opinion. And it even has voice clips, which is basically unheard of for a SNES game. And these single voice clips take up more space than like some entire games too, which is crazy to me. It is the perfect representation of why I love SNES RPGs so much. Every aspect of this genre that I love, this game has. And that makes beating this game scary. Have you ever experienced something so good that you don't want to finish it because you're worried you'll never find something that good ever again? It's that save the best for last mentality. I don't want to play this game and be disappointed that I'll never be able to find a SNES RPG this good ever again. I remember when I first played this game, I sat on the couch for a whole ass day and night straight, playing it without getting up. I was so ridiculously exhausted, and I didn't even realize how tired I was until I got up to get myself some food. I was stuck in some weird ass trance where I was so encapsulated by this universe and gameplay that my body literally ignored all of its needs. After that day, I stopped playing because I was like, damn, this game is too good. This was during the Certified RPG Summer TM, and I remember this like it was yesterday. Playing it now is almost just as encapsulating as it was back then. Years later, and I am still utterly impressed by everything about this game. The biggest thing I want to note is the combat, which has probably the most fleshed out on the system. It's this live combat thing that kind of acts as a precursor to a lot of those modern live combat systems. Or at least it feels like a primitive version of that. Not bad, but just an earlier version of that. It's still a very SNES feeling game without being dated or clunky, although I don't like having to fight the same ass easy enemies over and over again. I hate those bunnies, man. I hate them so much. I have to say, this game has such a beautiful vibe, not just cozy, but utterly gorgeous. I really like how they contrast the medieval setting and lush world with the high-tech set pieces. Half of it is this classic medieval sounding RPG music we're all accustomed to, and the other half is this intense futuristic sound. The game basically starts with you and your friends trying to find a cure to a disease that threatens to wipe out your entire community, with your whole entire planet being at stake. Much like Hourai, this game is very open-ended. I've gotten lost in this game so many times, and I've gone to areas I thought were going to progress the story, but instead just acted as optional areas, or places I wasn't supposed to be in yet. It's kinda worse than Hourai since it's way easier to get lost and disoriented. This game also has a couple of remakes, and I haven't played them. Since I'm a huge SNES head, I am biased to prefer this one, so you already know what I think about the others. Plus, this game on the SNES is just way more novel because you can clearly see how much this game pushes the limits of the system. And they made what feels like the idyllic RPG I would imagine in my head, but it doesn't actually exist. Except this does exist and you can play it right now. I'm still not beating it though, it's still too good, man. I don't want to ruin it for myself. I do have one major criticism though, and it's the UI. It's really clunky and not good at conveying what stuff does. There's a mechanic where you can hone your skills and unlock special moves and passive abilities and stuff. It's not easy to miss, but it's not hard either, since the menu is just, it's not good. I remember my first playthrough of this game, I unintentionally neglected this aspect of the game because it's so poorly conveyed. It's overly confusing and oddly cluttered, despite being pretty minimalistic at the same time. I can understand why this happens, since this game has so much content and such a large amount of items that things will kinda get cluttered, but I don't know, man, it just bothers me. Overall, this is a baller-ass game that isn't really that obscure, but also doesn't get the attention it deserves. The people who do know about this give it the love it needs though, so it doesn't feel that tragic that it's less well known. Romancing Saga 1. Okay, I'm gonna keep this brief because I might, keep that in mind, I might make a full video on this game. If I don't, well, I don't know, remind me in 5 years and I'll probably make it. This is the first Romancing Saga game, but the fourth Saga game. I think. I don't know, the chronology is confusing. I mean, I didn't even know the Final Fantasy Legend games were part of the Saga series until like half a year ago when the comments told me in another video. And yeah, a good way to describe these games is Final Fantasy II if it was actually good. This, being the first of the romancing games, honestly does well to kinda perfect the formula. Although it's hard as hell, at least the path I picked, which is the pirate path, One Piece forever baby. Although I have to appreciate the fact that enemies appear in the overworld, even if the spawn rates are so ridiculous that I actually prefer random encounters. The game doesn't work like a traditional RPG in terms of levels, blah blah blah, I've explained it so many times it's not even funny. Individual stats level up and all that, with even individual weapon type stats improving as well. One thing I will talk about is just how much I love the feeling of this game. It feels like the most stereotypical early SNES RPG ever made. The music, the aesthetic, the difficulty. Gosh, it's literally like a caricature of these games, but it works so well. It doesn't bother with trying to be convenient or forgiving. It'll straight up screw you over and put you through hell with no regard for your patience or well-being, which I actually don't mind, but it can get extremely frustrating when you're doing a first-time run. So yeah, a lot of people I can assume dropped this game, and I did too the first time playing. Last year, I posted a pic of me at a beach house playing, and funny story, not even an hour after taking that picture, I uninstalled the game. I obviously picked it back up, but I did not need to be stressing like that on vacation, okay? Only good vibes here. Which I mean, this is a very homey game, but also ridiculously stressful. I also used to think this was a Final Fantasy knockoff, but nah, it was actually made by Square, so that's cool. It really does have that early 90s Square touch, which is probably why it captures me so much. I'll talk even more about it some other time, maybe, but for right now, I think this is a satisfying analysis. Far East of Eden. Okay, trust, I'm not getting a ton of footage for this game, but I'm like really far into it. This is the most okay RPG on the system, and I say that with all the love in my heart. I would literally never want to replay this game ever again because it's so sterile. I don't know, I'm just not that enthusiastic on it, which is weird because this also feels like a stereotypical SNES RPG. This is like the new Super Mario Bros. Of RPGs. None of the areas are all that memorable, despite there being some standouts, and battles are just, well, they're battles, I guess. I think my biggest complaint for this game is with how linear and simple it feels. There's not a lot of room for customization when it comes to playstyles, which makes everything feel more rigid, and also makes the game feel even more linear than it already is. Trust me, I've tried to tinker with playstyles and stuff with this game to no avail. One thing I love about RPGs is how different everyone's playstyles and strategies are. With this game, almost every playthrough I've seen plays out identically to each other. Seriously, I've watched Let's Plays of this game and let me tell you, they're all like carbon copies of each other. But really, that's my only complaint for this game. It's a little by the books, which isn't at all terrible. But when you're on a system with one of the best RPG catalogs ever, Well, yeah, it kinda stands out like a sore thumb. It's almost Mystic Quest levels of, okay, no, I'm not gonna go that far, that would be really mean if I said that. It's pretty shallow, but it's still fun. There's not much to say about this game, because anything I could say would apply to almost like any RPG in this video. Good story, good aesthetic, and nice for relaxation, but have something on in the background so you're not super bored the entire time. Oh, and it's pretty funny actually. It has this really funny statue scene that I won't show on YouTube because it'll get age restricted. But just know, I audibly laughed at multiple points, and this game is surprisingly lowbrow humor for what it is. Bakumatsu Kourinden Oni. I don't know if I said that right, but I'm just gonna go with it. I've talked about this game before, and I'll do it again, briefly this time though. This is shockingly the 6th game in a long line of RPGs that gets almost zero attention online, which is absolutely insane to me. A couple of Game Boy games, a couple of SNES games, a PS1 game, and the series finally died on the DS. Don't know why I said finally, it's actually really depressing. God, this was a good ass series. These games are ridiculously overlooked, and this game is no exception. In hindsight, its only real novelty is how obscure it is, which I think I kinda hyped this thing up a little bit too much in my other video. It looks sorta cheap and is overall inferior to the game that preceded it, that game being Kishin Korinden Oni. Which I still don't know if I said that right, but again, we're going with it. I am here to talk about this game extensively, or somewhat extensively, because like, fuck, I just did this game so dirty in the other video, gosh. This game is way better than its sequel in almost every other way. It's just a really solid, well put together game, and it's actually pretty difficult too. I died like multiple times while playing this. I can't tell if that was due to the language barrier or this game being more challenging though. You play as a samurai, and honestly, I could just make up a story because none of you will be able to fact check me anyway, so like who cares? No, for real though, I was lost for like a lot of this because it turns out Google Translate isn't the most reliable way to play a game. Who would have thought? Most of what I said about Bakumatsu in the last video can be said about this game as well. It feels very nice to have such a well put together game all to myself, even if I can't understand it very well. It's not a game I would play extensively, but it's sometimes nice to just watch a playthrough on YouTube and have it on. Battles are especially seamless as well. The environments are gorgeous looking, and the battle setup here is unlike anything I've seen. All the character actions have that flow to them, you know, the flow. You probably get what I mean, and if you don't, I am truly sorry. It makes me really sad that unless I learn Japanese, I'll never be able to truly experience this game in its intended context. Unless someone were to, I don't know, translate it or something, just a thought. Seriously though, I have such huge respect for people who come out with these translations. The fact that so many of the games in this video have gotten fan translations just shows how hardworking and dedicated these people are. Also, the music here is great, but like, come on, that's like a guaranteed thing for every SNES RPG. If I kept saying it, it would get redundant. It would get really redundant. Rudras no Hiho, or Treasure of the Rudras, is another milquetoast SNES RPG. It's good, and will definitely satiate your Final Fantasy addiction, if you have one. And it's very pretty, but nothing special in comparison to these other games. And when I say it's very pretty, it's like, gosh, it's godly looking. Notably, these battle backgrounds, which man, I love video game battle backgrounds so much, it's not even funny. And that's all she wrote. Actually, no. This game gives you the choice of 3 different characters, which I mean, the more variety, the better, am I right? Okay, one thing I have to complain about is when RPGs try to be unique in their spell names. Like, some of these are so oddly named that I have no idea what they even do. Yo, just like call it fire, you don't need to be all fancy with this new freaking name, okay? It might be an issue with the fan translation, I don't know. I still hate it. Now the fact that Metal Max Returns was never localized baffles me because it's like the perfect game for America. It has all these badass tanks and weapons, a freaking cool ass setting with these kick-ass characters. I mean, it's literally called freaking Metal Max. What more do you people want? Well, this game does critique a lot regarding war and how people profit from conflict and the suffering of other people, and how human fighting will inevitably lead to a world where people's lives are intertwined with conflict. But like, come on, we're Americans, we don't pick up on that kind of stuff. All these critiques and subtle themes are gonna be lost on me because we got tanks, guns, cars, hell yeah. I've been itching to talk about this game for forever, and I'm planning on making a full video on this entire series in, well, I don't know because I'm busy as hell, man. Don't worry though, I won't hold back with my thoughts on this specific game. It's actually a remake of the original NES game. There's also a really cool story behind this whole thing as well that I talk about in my Lost Media video. The developer of Metal Max actually worked in a now cancelled Famicom RPG that he passionately labored away at. His idea never really came into fruition, and all of it is now lost media. The failure of this game really took a toll on him mentally, and he said that he lost a lot of faith in himself as a game dev. Which before this, he was actually a very well-respected developer, working on things such as Dragon Quest III, although he left over creative differences. Metal Max kind of acted as a redemption and the last chance for him to prove himself. Well, the series proved to be quite a success and went on to become a cult classic. The first game itself is one of the better RPGs on the system, and you can see how much passion was put into the original. I mean, he was obviously compensating for his lost project, which in a way definitely motivated him. Trust me, I've had plenty of failed projects that made me want to tirelessly labor away at something just to prove to myself that I am talented at what I do. Hell, I edited that cozy obscure GBA RPGs video in like 5 days, which was not healthy and left me like bedridden for the week after that. But I proved in my mind that I was competent at what I did, because man, I freaking love that video. I'm sorry. I don't mean to self-obsess, but I love that video so much. And yeah, even in the remake of Metal Max, you can see how much effort was put into this game. Artists often put out their best work when they are starving to prove something, and man, this game more than compensates. It's very open-ended, which this video is making me realize how that's not as unique a trait as I thought it was in SNES RPGs. But here, it truly feels like an open world. It's not all that good with directions, and really leaves you to explore and figure out what you need to do on your own. There are plenty of optional locations and branching paths, and so many items and equipment to get that is just completely missable. It doesn't hold your hand in terms of mechanics and getting stuff you're probably gonna need. You're responsible for yourself and are expected to manage things responsibly. That includes ammo, money, and fuel. And I've gotten a lot of stuff that I have to question, was it meant to advance the story or not, or did it just find it out of sheer coincidence? I met this guy who I don't even know if he advances the story or not. I just talked to him randomly and he decided to join my party out of nowhere. It just works extremely well as an RPG, and I really wouldn't expect less from a Dragon Quest dev. One thing I will have to note is the remake has some leftovers of the NES game that make it more clunky than the average SNES RPG. You know, menus just being kinda terrible, and the story here isn't really that fleshed out from the NES game. The remake does a really good job at masking the fact that this is a remake of a game on a much less capable hardware, but certain things begin to make more sense once you figure out it's not its own original game. The open world begins to make sense when you realize it's probably due to technical limitations and not an independent design choice. They kinda had to sacrifice the story for a more free-feeling game, if you know what I mean. There's so much to this game though, and man, is it freaking good as hell. If you were to play any game in this video, I would 100% recommend this one for you to play. I feel like you guys just need to experience this one for yourselves because it is genuinely insane. It excels in every aspect and is extremely impressive as both an NES game and a SNES game. If you decide to pick this one up, well, let me tell you, you're gonna be eating good for the next few weeks, or few days if you binge this like crazy. And yeah, this game isn't very long, unlike this review, which I should probably wrap up right now actually. Okay, I tried to keep that as brief as possible since a lot of it was kind of a retread of stuff I've already said before. I'm just now realizing that was probably like 20 something minutes. I'm sorry for yapping that long. I didn't think it would be that long, okay? We're going on to the new stuff now. I played all of these extensively, so here are my raw, unfiltered thoughts on these very unique games. Okay, let me try and fail to pronounce this. Madou, Monogatari, Hanamaru, Youchienji. I hope I said that right. Flame me in the comments for this and tell me how wrong I said it. I don't care, man. This game is way weirder than I expected it to be. Like, way weirder. You play as this girl going through magic kindergarten, and you have to collect these 8 stones. Basically, every attack in this game is magic based, although I don't know if there's MP because, well, things that tell you your status aren't really in this game. Like, if you're low on health, there's no health bar. Instead, your character will look visually tired, and there will be text telling you if they're feeling great, feeling okay, or not feeling good. Same with levels. I was starting to think this game didn't have traditional RPG levels, but it turns out your XP is just invisible. Your XP bar isn't invisible, but it's not super noticeable either. It appears down here, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't realize this. It's very heavy on using visuals to convey certain things instead of text like most RPGs of this era. It might be annoying or weird to some people, but I think it kinda adds to the aesthetic of this game. You are playing as a kindergartner after all, so having to rely on visuals rather than text makes sense a lot. And your brain adapts pretty quickly to what everything means, so it's not crazy confusing or anything. Battles themselves are traditional turn-based, although you have to beat enemies as efficiently as possible because dying in this is pretty easy. It's not hard, but if you aren't being careful, it's not difficult to get caught off guard and die. Also, it's a pretty slow game, even for SNES RPG standards. I really don't care because I'm patient, but I can 100% see this getting annoying as hell. Apparently, this game is actually part of a larger series too, which I wasn't expecting. And Puyo Puyo is a spin-off of this series, what the hell? I knew they were made by the same developers because I saw one of these blobs in the game, but like, I don't play Puyo Puyo, I don't know what they're called. I thought it was a cute little reference to another game. I had no idea they were this closely connected. Now that I know there's more of these games, I'm probably gonna check some of them out. I don't know though. This game in particular has such a cute aesthetic. It's as sweet as candy dipped in caramel. It might be overly cute to some of you cynical motherfuckers out there, but to me personally, I find it really charming. Especially since I'm playing this after a long day and just need something to wind down to. This is like the perfect game to just play after a stressful day, and I think how slow it is makes it even better. It forces you to just kind of relax and take everything in. Ignore how slow it actually is. This game isn't really as obscure as I thought it was initially, but it seems to not get much attention either. Okay, so I'm doing even more digging like post playing this game, and this series is just cute as hell, man. There's so many of these games, and they all have like a really nice looking art style and gameplay loop. My urge to binge this series for a video is so large right now, but I know I don't have the time for that. I don't ever plan on doing YouTube full time, even if I did make sufficient income off of it. But sometimes I wish I could because man, I have so many videos I want to make. Gosh, life's not fair. Guys, Eternal Filena might be the most I've enjoyed playing a game in almost 2 whole years. When finding games to play for this video, this is the one I was looking forward to playing the most. I think it's pretty obvious now, but I am a huge fan of more traditional RPGs. Of course, I always appreciate these mechanics and things to make them stand out, but most of the time, I just prefer some good old traditional turn-based combat. When I saw the screenshots for this game, I thought it kinda looked like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, or Final Fantasy America, if you really want to rub some salt in the wound that was this game. And I always thought that game was kinda wasted potential. It had some cool mechanics, kick-ass music, and a pretty unique battle screen as well. And I'm not gonna say Eternal Filena and Mystic Quest are alike because they're really not, but I don't know, I just saw the parallels early on and it really excited me for this. Especially since I knew this game was a hidden gem before even playing it. And let me tell you, it did not disappoint. In fact, it sorta exceeded my expectations. So you play as this girl who is raised as a battler by her mentor and has to masquerade as a dude to kick some ass in the stadiums. She gets herself a wife who takes care of you during this series of battles. We later find out from this dude here that some of these battles later on are actually scripted, and it involves her killing her previous mentor to win the tournament. We then casually rebel against the evil empire and cause chaos, which forces us to retreat. There's a lot more that happens, but this is the main setup of the game. One thing I have to mention is that we get blinded by this lady whose husband we killed in battle. And for like a few hours of the game, there's this annoying ass visual effect where whenever you walk, you can't really see anything. It's unbearable to look at, for some reason takes up like hours of the game, and it just makes my head hurt. I need like Tylenol or something, man. I don't want to make your eyes hurt while watching this video, so I'm going to try to refrain from using footage from those parts of the game. That aside, yeah, this game is an experience. The Final Fantasy influence in a lot of these SNES games runs super deep. It's really cool seeing how influential the Final Fantasy series used to be back in ye olden days. And this game is actually based on a fantasy light novel, which I am just now discovering after playing the game. I was just in class, don't ask why I was looking up this game in class. I was bored, okay? And I just saw this and I was like, wait, this is based on a book? What the hell? It even has an OVA with like 6 episodes, and let me just say right now, I love old school anime, oh my gosh. I mean, I just love how it looks, the colors especially. The series in general seems to be kind of forgotten, at least over here in America, and the game definitely keeps the aesthetic of the series. Playing it was pretty seamless, despite the translation being unfinished, but still playable. No, that's literally what the translation is called. Unfinished translation, but still playable. It really rolls off the tongue right there. The game is polished in all aspects, which is why writing about this game is hard. Whatever I could say about this game, I could say about any other amazing SNES RPG. It's just super solid and very engaging, which I think is all you really need for a great RPG. I always complain about having to get footage for stuff because I mean, come on, I didn't buy a 3DS to be recording at my desk the entire time. I want to be able to play games while lying in bed like a lazy whale. But with this game, I genuinely did not care. I played this thing for like 5 hours straight when getting footage and enjoyed every single minute. Out of any of the games in this video, I recommend this one the most. It might be the least unique out of any of these, but it's just the most solid. With characters and relationships I actually care about, a ton of really charming stylistic choices, and an overall simple but strong old school RPG experience. Also, I mean, it's just an obscure old RPG. Part of why I play these games is because there's a sort of novelty of playing these kind of forgotten games. It almost feels like visiting an abandoned community, being the first person in months or years to really give it any attention. And as humans often like to do, I find pleasure in relaying my findings to the public. Even if it's not too remarkable, I just think sharing these games is cool. I came into Emerald Dragon with some expectations. I've had people tell me this is a pretty weird game and an even weirder port of an already existing game, which I had no idea this game was based on an already existing game and basically a console version of that. I have heard it strays away from the PC version a lot though. It certainly has that old PC game charm to it. When first booting it up, it seemed like a pretty standard SNES RPG. Apart from the voice clips, which I am now realizing isn't as rare as I thought it was on the system. Like seriously, a lot of the games in this video had voice clips and it always shocked me every single time. It's not as rare as I thought it was. Especially Love Quest, which goes crazy with the voices. Emerald Dragon seemed pretty normal though. Then I got to the battles and I was like, this is what people were talking about, wasn't it? And yeah, it's actually really unique, a good departure from regular turn-based stuff. It reminds me of a way faster version of the battle system in Ultima Exodus. I love the battles in Ultima Exodus, but damn is it slow. My zoomer brain can't handle that shit. It's really novel and all, but gets kinda stale pretty quickly, but it's still a nice change of pace from turn-based stuff. I can't tell you enough how shocked I was when I entered a battle and saw this. At first, I thought it was a fancy battle screen, but then I realized I could start moving around and hit stuff. It's really unique and just got me in the mood to keep playing this game. You take the role of this dragon who goes to the human world in the body of a person to protect a girl. The girl lived in the dragon world for years but was advised to leave because she would have had a better life in the human world. When going into the human world, we kinda get entangled into a bunch of typical RPG stuff. An evil empire, secret ruins, a dying village, you know, normal stuff. Man, I love old school RPGs, but I am so glad that in the modern age, they've moved in a different direction when it comes to story. Even in 95, the story beats in this are kinda cliche. When you've played as many RPGs as I have, well, it gets predictable. I'm at the point where I don't even need to pay attention to the story, and I still know what's going on. This isn't a complaint or anything, and I'm not knocking this game for it, but it's just something I noticed. This game is very easy, and despite the new cool-ass battle system, there's actually not that much strategizing. To be fair, there is a bit more than there would be in traditional turn-based stuff, but you can only control one party member, and the rest are automated. It's actually pretty good, and the AI is competent, so no complaints here. I always prefer being able to control my own party, but this makes the game move faster anyway, so I'm not complaining. I can't understate the cozy aspect of this one either. It's not cozy in the traditional way like a lot of these other games. The music is pretty decent, nothing special, the atmosphere is typical of most of the RPGs on the system, and the characters are pretty alright. But I don't know, something about this way this game operates just makes it the perfect afternoon game for me. I always loved those old school PC games, and given that this is kind of like a port/remake of that, well yeah, a lot of that bias of mine spills over a bit. Sometimes games that challenge you can be oddly comforting in a way, but other times you just want to sit down and play a game that you can breeze through. And yeah, this is a good game for that. Even grinding in this is pretty relaxing. I know I said it earlier, but I can't stress enough how repetitive the battles will start to get. I don't recommend binging this game because like your mind will turn to mush. I played this one over the course of a week, whereas for most of these, I binged in like a few days. If you were to take away anything from this video, don't freaking binge this game, please. It's not worth it. It's a good game, but just don't do it. The Magical Land of Wozz, or Cho Maho Tairiku Wozz. I sincerely hope no Japanese speakers watch my content because at this point, it's just a humiliation ritual trying to pronounce this correctly. I was hugely looking forward to playing this game. In fact, it was the very game that kickstarted me making this video. Now you're probably wondering how I even heard of this game. Well, that's a good question because I don't even know. Most of these I heard it from old ass RPG forums or other YouTubers and stuff. For this game, I have literally no idea. Despite this game having a translation, it's probably even more obscure than some of the games that didn't get one. I was gonna play it independently, but I was just like, well, the people like the last Cozy Obscure RPGs vid, so I might as well make another one. And this is technically a SNES RPG, so I might as well play this game along with a few others and turn it into some content, because my brain is addicted to YouTube. But did it live up to the hype? I don't know yet, man. I'm writing this part of the script before even playing it. Hold on, let me binge it real quick. Yeah, no, this game is freaking sweet. The name of the game is obviously a play on the Wizard of Oz, and features these 3 kids getting isekai'd into this magic world where you must take the role of the world's protector. You see, they were trying to summon some mystical hero to save the world, but instead, they were left with you 3. You can choose from these 3 kids, and what's cool about this is despite them sticking together, we're actually offered different perspectives when playing as each one. For example, there's this part near the beginning of the game where you must enter a cave. Well, one of the characters refuses to enter and instead takes his own path into the wilderness. The other 2 enter, but one chickens out and leaves, while the last one continues on into the cave. Depending on which one you picked, you'll be offered a unique perspective and cutscene. Although it's pretty surface level, as you guys always regroup when the plot demands it. I picked the Chinese genius with magic skills because I just like introverted characters, and he's described as not talking much, which was perfect for me, let me tell you. I know I'm a YouTuber who makes videos of me yapping for hours on end, but sometimes I like my quiet. Also, he's a mage, and I've really come to appreciate magic classes the past few months. I used to always prefer swordsmen or physical damage oriented characters, but a lot of the time, mages have way more variety and room to be creative when playing them. Also, they're absolutely overpowered when used correctly. The battle screen here also reminds me a lot of the Breath of Fire games, with the sorta isometric view, although the backgrounds are a nice touch. It can be a little slow, and unlike Madou, I'm not pronouncing that whole thing again, I'm just calling it Madou. Unlike Madou, the game's sluggishness is kinda to its detriment. As far as I know, there's no running in this game, and battles aren't all that seamless either. It doesn't help that this game is really easy, so random encounters can be pretty grating. And to add on to that even more, this game requires a lot of exploration, which I highly appreciate, but that exploration can be hindered by how slow things are. Like, the world here is genuinely fun to explore, and getting lost isn't unheard of. I was stuck in this forest for like an hour before I realized what I needed to do. And there were a countless amount of times where I entered an area I wasn't supposed to be in yet, but the game just let me explore anyway. This effort to make the world feel more explorable doesn't go unnoticed. And it's really novel that the devs didn't try to lock these areas behind events or specific story items. The harder enemies that give more XP actually rewards the player to go to these areas you're not supposed to be in yet. And even though I called this game easy, the level scaling is pretty good. It's not one of the more impressive RPGs on the system, but it's one of the more solid ones. And I also like the dynamic of the main trio. They're pretty nice. I'd say this is a good game to end off on, huh? It's pretty cozy, it's pretty obscure. That's all a man really needs in life. That's all a man really needs. As is tradition, we're going to go over some honorable mentions. I love all of these games, but just didn't talk about them extensively for one reason or another. Super Chinese World 2 and 3. Okay, I lied when I said I loved all these games, because these 2 exist. So the thing about this is I was actually planning on a full segment for these games, but 2 things happened. 1, I lost all of my footage and didn't feel like replaying this game. And 2, yeah, no, these games just aren't fun. It's a beat 'em up RPG with platformer, and it's just not that great, honestly. A traditional RPG with beat 'em up style battles sounds cool until you realize every battle takes up way too much time and energy. They didn't design the game to account for this or anything. The encounter rate is ridiculously high for what it is. And level scaling is atrocious, man. And to be honest, I can deal with that. I'm chillin', but the platformer segments here are freaking horrible, they're terrible. I thought they were optional, but no, they're required and they're bad. The third game actually allows for turn-based combat, but at this point, I was so burnt out on the series. And even then, it's just a generic bare-bones RPG with so little substance, it's almost insulting. All the negativity aside, I love the art for these 2 games. I can 100% appreciate that aspect. 4 out of 10. The art carries, but the beat 'em up aspect isn't all that terrible on its own. Ranma 1.5, Treasure of the Red Cat Gang. Pretty standard licensed RPG here. I actually love Ranma so much, I'm watching it for a future video that may or may not come out, I don't know yet. And I just think it's a really neat show. I don't find it very funny, but I love the vibe, the character dynamics, and the characters themselves. The tropes I hate in most anime are actually quite enjoyable here, and wait, no, this isn't an anime review. 6 out of 10. I love Ranma, but man, this game looks rough. Visually, it looks rough. I think that's about it. Beta Black Editor Pixar. There we go. Man, this video was a trip. I had a lot of fun making it, and I hope you had fun watching it too. My life is gonna get pretty hectic the next coming months with my graduation and stuff. And I also have like 7 exams, so I wanted to cram one more big video out before the grind starts, you know? Anyway, enough about me. Have a good day, good night, good evening, whatever. Peace out.